Politics International Candidate Interviews. This next session, we will be interviewing for candidates for District 18 in the Nevada State Assembly. With us today, Ms. Erica Mosca. Ms. Mosca, would you like to introduce yourself and tell the panel a little about yourself?
Sure, thank you so much. I know after lunch is a hard time, so I appreciate you and all that you do. My name is Erica Mosca. I am running to be the Assemblywoman of District 18. I'm proud to be the first person in my family to graduate from college. I was a Clark County School District teacher. I worked on high-level policy in the superintendent's office, and I have a degree in education policy from Harvard. But more importantly to me, 4 years ago, I started the only local college access and community empowerment nonprofit organization called Leaders in Training. And we support East Las Vegas students to become first-generation college graduates, but more importantly, to want to come back and be leaders of their own community. So I'm someone who's from the grassroots. I grew up poor and working class. My working class parents live with me, and I see every day the issues that real people face, from my students and their families to my own parents. So I'm someone who wasn't involved in politics. I'm in the grassroots, and I'm running to represent real people and help be their voice.
Thank you very much, Ms. Mosca. Okay, once again, I'll remind our panelists, no crosstalk. Questions may be 1 minute, and, no more than 30 seconds. And Ms. Mosca, you have 1 minute to reply to questions. All right, and I think this time we'll start with, where did we start last time? Mr. Ahern, let's start with you. Although I believe it's well, if it's Ms. Levy's turn, it's okay. Just because I'm loud doesn't mean you can't hear
the moderator. I'm just here to listen.
Ms. Levy, we're going to go with you. Go right ahead.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Ms. Mosca, for coming today to be subjected to our questions. My question for you is, who do you support for the U.S. presidency this year and why?
That's a great question, and I'm going to be very honest. I caucused for Bernie Sanders as somebody who really cares about grassroots and people who are growing up low income and making sure that working class people have opportunities. That's who I supported. I'm a Democrat, and I'll support whoever the nomination is, but that's who I supported.
Thank you.
Erica, my name is Scott LaFada, and I'm with Citizens for a Better America. Since your educational background is appropriate for this question, can you let us know what you think it would take to fix education here in Nevada?
Oh, that's a great question. This is something of why I'm running. I think it's important that we have educators who actually have experience in the grassroots and know what's happening. To me, I think of three key things. I think about a weighted student formula that is actually enacted in a lot of different states, where instead of categorical funding, we actually have funding that goes to students who have the most need to ensure that those schools have equitable access to succeed. I also think of what does it mean to have a K-12 system that's actually a K-20 system. You know, our higher education system and our K-12 system are under the same umbrella. Why is there no accountability that if a student leaves a certain high school and then they go to college and if they require remediation, there's no talk, there's no collaboration, there's no accountability. Even though I'm a Democrat, I am a supporter of school choice and charter schools. I think in the most needy areas, parents and families don't have the resources to go somewhere else, and I think that it's important that if families start a movement of wanting a school, which we have one in Lamb Bonanza that's a great example, that parents should be able to have that choice. And to me as well, I really care about, I think, the teacher pipeline. I don't think it's just about more money. I think it's about how do we support our teachers, how do we support our principals as well, and how can we ensure that people feel like they have a voice in their own jobs and fields.
Erica, Fred Conquest, Executive Director of Citizens for a Better America. If you're elected to the State Assembly, where would you stand on repealing the common tax of 3%, and how would you replace the funding, or how would you fund it so that education actually gets the money?
I think, to me, I really believe that the law was passed, that's going to be the law, and to me I think about return on investment, and what I really care about is how is it actually being implemented. Are we giving time for those laws to have any effect, and are we actually looking to see if they are having the desired effect, and then if they're not, then thinking about what was missing in that implementation piece. So I think it's a good question. I think it's something we need to look at, and in my view it's already passed, but what can we do to make sure that it's being effective?
Thank you. It's been said that the Clark County Detention Center is the largest single provider of mental health services in Southern Nevada, but not by choice, okay? Because so many people with problems end up there. What would you do to increase the delivery of mental health services to Clark County and the citizens of this county?
Oh my gosh, I would be somebody.
I was all over this morning. You're like the reason I got out of bed today. So I'm very excited you showed up. So here's my thing. My question is more of a philosophical one. You're a Democrat. I'm a millennial Republican. I like you because you're a millennial. We have similarities. But here's the thing. We don't agree on a lot, from what I understand. So here's my thing. How are you going to come and appeal to the millennial Republicans like me who are looking to vote for a voice, but someone doesn't show up? You know, how do you appeal to the other side of the aisle is what I'm asking.
Yeah, thank you. I really appreciate that. I think being a millennial in this race is very important. I think that being a voice for people who are not engaged in the actual political process. I'm somebody who really cares about what's happening around me. I never thought that I would be a politician. I don't think it's very fun running for office or something that I wanted to do, but I care so much about my community. I probably live off of Fuller Highway in East Tropicana. I bought my home there and when I was 22, and I'll continue to live there forever. And I think your question is really important because we're never going to get anything done if we don't agree. I think being somebody who understands that real people have real problems and that maybe we see differently on the issues, but we both care about the issues very much, that helps me have a mindset and a perspective that I would at least engage you and want to know what your issues are and where those lines of differences, where are the actual foundations of those lines of differences to see if there's any commonalities. And I also think I've seen how it has been a detriment on the campaign trail, but I don't think it's a detriment if I actually do win around the fact that I am not part of this establishment. So for me, I wouldn't feel like, well, because I'm on this side, I have to feel this certain way. That's why I always say, I believe in a pro-charter, which is not something that most Democrats are when it comes to education. So I appreciate your question, and I think as someone who's going to be here for a very long time in Nevada and other millennials, we, at least myself, and I can tell from your question, would be willing to sit down and at least hash out where we come from.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Erica. My name is Robert Faust. I'd like to know what your position is on concealed weapons on campus and who should carry them and who shouldn't.
My opinion on, in general, I believe in Second Amendment rights. My dad is a armed security guard. He is contracted out on the RTC, so he's one of those people that are on the buses to try to make sure the buses are safe, and that's a very dangerous job. And so I support the Second Amendment. Him and my mom go to the shooting range. When it comes to campus carry, I personally don't support campus carry when I look at teachers and I see what's happening in our schools, and I just, for me personally, can't imagine having to also be in charge of a weapon. Again, that's me personally with that issue, though I do believe in Second Amendment rights.
So, do you believe in a minimum wage, a $15 minimum wage here in Nevada, number one? Number two, what's your basis for that being a living wage? Is it a living wage for someone with a mom with 3 kids at home? Is that a living wage, $15 an hour, versus let's say a teenager who's 17 or 18 for the first job? How do you get to that $15 an hour? What's your determination? And what is, or is it, why not $20 an hour? Why not 30?
For me personally, I do believe that what we have right now is not a livable wage, and I can show you my parents from themselves to my students and families. I don't believe what the current minimum wage is. I would also say my viewpoint is, I started a nonprofit in 2012, which is a small business, so if all of a sudden I was supposed to pay my staff $15, I'd be out of business. So I also understand that perspective. I think for me, I see students, especially minority, low-income, young people of color, who we told them to do everything right, and I have their financial aid letters, and we cannot figure out how to pay for college without getting $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 in loans, and it's also something that their parents can't pay for. So I think that there has to be a middle ground that if you're like one of our parents that works 2 jobs and never has a day off, and all you can do is afford your rent, and you can't take time off to go to your students' functions, and then the school blames you for not being involved, I think there's something deeper in that. I do believe in a higher minimum wage. I think that's the exact question, where is the exact $15 coming from? I do believe in a higher wage. I think it would be important to be phased in so it's not on the backs of small business owners that do provide support. for people, but I do believe in a higher wage.
What's the basis for the thinking? That's my question. What's empirical evidence that that's the wage that needs to be where it needs to be?
Right, I haven't seen that. I know that some candidates believe in a $12 minimum wage raise. I do believe in more, I actually believe in job training, and I think that that's something that is not being talked about. If you look at people who want better work but don't have the skills, don't have an opportunity to get that, or when we actually attract businesses here, I think that's a big deal, especially when we attract businesses here and say that they need to employ local, but are we actually making them train the people that are here? So I think it's more, it's a very important question. I think it has to do with minimum wage, I think it has to do with job training, and me personally, I don't know where the 15 comes from, and that's something that I would want to know.
Hi, Erica. What is your opinion regarding healthcare in our state?
Healthcare. I know we need better healthcare. I'm someone who, I'm actually fortunate, to be here because both of my grandfathers were in the military, and they actually brought my grandmother over here from the Philippines. So I have experience with the military, and why I bring this up is because I teach 5th grade as well during the day at Daniel Goldfarb Elementary School off East Charleston and North Nellis. And two of the people that I have the privilege to have lunch with in the staff lounge every day is a veteran of the Vietnam War, and the other one is a Marine Corps veteran. And I asked them, I wanted to know, what do you think is the #1 issue facing veterans? And they said healthcare. And they said it was the backlog of healthcare, that the people who need it the most are not going up front in the line. And so for me, I care a lot about healthcare. I think there are many different things. I know students and families who don't have access to healthcare. When I was 26 and was an entrepreneur starting my nonprofit, I was too old to be on my parents' health care, so I didn't have health care. So I think it's a big issue. It is something that I want to ensure that we're figuring out for real people.
Good day, Erica. How are you today?
This is fun.
Okay. Seeing that you're a Harvard grad, congratulations on that, because that's a tough road. How do we bring more Ivy League people like yourself into the state, and how do we retain the students who are exceptional as opposed to going to other places in the country in, say, UNLV or UNR? How do we get there?
Yes, okay, this is a great question. Okay, so I'll answer your second question first. At Leaders in Training, this is actually what we're working with, is how do you make people so proud to be from where they're from, either their identity or their city, that they actually feel an obligation that if we're giving you all this support from free SAT prep, free ACT prep, to visiting schools, that you actually owe your community to come back because there's no one in power that looks like you. So I actually really believe that that is something that has to be engraved from a young age and has to be very assets-based about where we live. I'm someone that came here, I'm from California, but I went to 7 different schools growing up. I moved around a lot, and why I loved it when I got here as a teacher is because it was somewhere that people were very, to me, friendly. I felt very welcome here. It's also somewhere where I feel like if you want to dig in and do some work, you can do well. I started my nonprofit at 26 because people were around that when I told them what my idea was, and when they saw that I was willing to put the work in, they were willing to help out. And I think that that's something that if we could somehow market to people or let them know that this really is a place of opportunity. I really believe that the entrepreneurial spirit is here, that you can succeed here, that when you start going to meetings and you see the same people a lot because they're engaged, that's not true. I lived in Boston for 5 years. That's not a true thing. It's very hard to move up and to actually make things happen. So I really think about how we can market to people, let them know, and then our best and brightest that stay here, how can we help incentivize them? The teacher shortage, how can we help incentivize that they want to be teachers in their own communities and feel like they're empowering others to be a change and make a difference?
Thank you. Ms. Steelman, did you want to ask a question?
I do. Good afternoon, Erica. Thank you for being here. My name is Karen Steelman. I'm the Auxiliary Director with Veterans in Politics. And I'd like to ask you if you could expound on a little bit on why you support Bernie Sanders. What is exactly about Bernie that you like and that you support?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. For me personally, it's actually the biggest reason is for me. So I started my nonprofit. We are a nonprofit that is not fully funded, right? Like I didn't grow up rich. I don't have any rich uncles. I literally work multiple jobs to fund this nonprofit that I really pay for. We believe in grassroots. We've had over 500 individual donors, from students and families to teachers. That's how we survive. to me, Bernie Sanders is on the same vein as someone who doesn't want to be owned by anyone. Our board of directors, which I know you all know how board of directors work, for me, it was very important that a majority of our board of directors are either Nevada natives or come from some minority identity group, because they would actually understand what our students are going through, versus some very hierarchical person that maybe not understand what it's like, but will give and dictate rules. So to me, it was very important that we weren't owned and that we can use the research that we know will work. And so to me, the very first thing that's really just gravitated is that, to me, in my opinion, I see that he's not owned by anyone and that he's actually saying what he believes in, and that he can do that because there are no special interest groups pulling his strings.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Mosca. Before we check back with the panel, is there anyone from the audience who wanted to speak? We have only a very few minutes. Seeing none, is there anyone else? We've got about another 2 or 3 minutes. Is there anyone else? Mr. Lauer.
I'd like to expand on what Karen was saying. And so I think it's really important to define who candidates are, what they stand for, what they believe in. Are you a socialist Democrat like Bernie Sanders? Do you support his philosophy of democratic socialism?
Yes, that's a good question. I would not say that I'm a democratic socialist. I would say I'm a Democrat. I think that it's important that people can work hard and earn their money and be successful. I wouldn't want to redistribute resources to people who didn't earn it, but I do think it's important, when I think about it, that there are real things happening, especially in Clark County, where if we tell a student, for example, that if they do everything right, they can succeed, that's not true when you don't have 20 teachers in a school, when you don't have a principal there, when your parents can't get a job. To me, it's not that we should give that person something, it's that we should empower equitable opportunity so that they could succeed.
Well, Bernie believes in and has advocated for free
No cross
university.
sorry.
No, I'm just asking, do you believe in free university, free college?
Okay, as someone who is...
So you're going to be voting on that issue as a legislature?
Yeah, I get that. As someone that understands education policy and higher education, I know that in the implementation level that would not be possible. I think there has to be something for those who can't afford it, but I would not say that we're just going to make it free.
Thank you very much.
And that brings us to our time. Ms. Mosca, thank you very much. We appreciate you taking the time to